Good morning, everyone. So this is probably one of the most debated and talked about fights in a long time. Daniel Dubois versus Anthony Joshua, and it is preview and prediction time. As I said, this has probably been one of the most debated fights I've seen online on all the usual boxing channels, the outlets and everything else, as to who I think going to win, how each fighter should go about this, comparing previous fights. There's been a lot of talk of Daniel Dubois' two prior wins now, being better wins than Anthony Joshua's last two wins. And there's so much nuance involved in this. This is where, it really comes down a lot of time to matters of opinion, because if you say Daniel Dubois' two wins were better because he came through real tests and had to really overcome adversity, in which he did, and that qualifies them as better wins, and that, if that's your opinion, that's fine. And they will say that they're better wins than Anthony Joshua's wins because Anthony Joshua didn't have to overcome adversity. A lot of people feel he had two opponents that almost laid down. Otto Wallin didn't seem to show much ambition, and Francis Ngannou, Joshua only done what Tyson Fury should have done. I don't agree with that personally. When it comes to the Ngannou fight, I believe Tyson Fury didn't have the ability to do that. I don't think he punches hard enough or well enough or correct enough to have done that to Francis Ngannou. He didn't. Although he won he won that fight comfortably. A lot of people debated and said that Ngannou won that fight. He didn't. Tyson Fury won that comfortably by quite a wide margin, even though he looked awful in doing so. When we come to Otto Wallin, I believe if you go back and watch this, and I said this at the time, Anthony Joshua lands a body shot, like a straight right hand to the body, minute and a half into the first round. From that point on, Otto Wallin had all the fight knocked out of him. From that point, any ambition that he did have was gone after that right hand to the body, essentially. If we look at Daniel Dubois' two fights against Jarrell Miller and then Filip Ergovic, a lot of people say this is Daniel Dubois reborn, and to a certain degree it was. Against Big Baby Miller, he came through a mid-round kind of wobble. Quite famously, Frank Warren brought his father down to ringside and he was shouting instructions, and that seemed to give Daniel Dubois the motivation and the belief to overcome Jarrell Miller in that fight, which he did against Filip Ergovic. Filip Ergovic teed off on Daniel Dubois at will early on in that fight. I will say, though, that the Ergovic right hand was not a very, very good right hand. I don't think he threw it particularly well from a technical point of view, and I don't think it carried that much power. Daniel Dubois took the shots really well. I don't think there's any doubt over Daniel Dubois' chin. I think it was always Daniel Dubois' sort of belief or heart that seemed to be the problem, or confidence. If you look at the shots, I mean, we can talk about the... If we talk about the Usyk fight first, he basically took a knee after a stiff jab. There were no physical effects of the punch. He wasn't scrambled. His senses weren't scrambled at all. In fact, his cognitive, process was still there fully. He took the knee. He acknowledged the count and then rose on 10 and 11, whatever you like, and he quit. Against Joe Joyce, he had the orbital bone problem. So, you can take that as you will. Technically, yes, he quit, but look, I'm not going to hold that against a guy who had a broken orbital. In my opinion, he took the right decision to probably opt out of that fight and choose to fight another day. So if we look into both guys' qualities, I think Anthony Joshua's chin is better than what people think. I don't think his chin is essentially the problem. I think if we look at, I would say Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua's chins are kind of around equal. The difference being Tyson Fury's powers of recovery are a lot better than Anthony Joshua's. Anthony Joshua stays hit for far longer than someone like Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury's powers of recovery are almost freakish and a lot better than Anthony Joshua's. Joshua's powers of recovery seem to be the problem. Rather than having a bad chin, it is his recovery that's the problem. Daniel Dubois looks to have a really good chin. In essence, like I said, the fights that he's lost hasn't been because his chin is bad or he's been scrambled or his senses have gone and he's been out on his feet. Daniel Dubois looks to have a rock solid chin. The problem was he seemed to opt out rather easily. Certainly against Alexander Usyk, that was the case. I've heard a lot of people say that this fight is a shootout. It's a case of who gets off first and who lands first. Now, I disagree with that, and this is why I disagree with that. Certainly under Ben Davison, and even before that, to me, Anthony Joshua's strengths and the way he goes about fights now, he is a offensive counterpuncher. That is his strength to me. If you look at a lot of the knockdowns, the second knockdown against Ngannou, the shot that essentially ended the fight against Wallen, they were all counter right hands, and sometimes followed. That counter right hand is followed by the left hook. The shot that sort of finished the fight against Wallen was a counter right hand with a right hook with the left hook that followed it, which done all the damage. So in terms of getting off first, for Anthony Joshua, I don't think that is the right option. I don't think that's what you see. I think you will see a Anthony Joshua that in essence starts quite slow and quite suspect. Anthony Joshua now, people are about to talk about this. Old Anthony Joshua's back. I have for a long time, if you followed this channel, absolutely disagreed with that. And I've always said what you have now is an Anthony Joshua that is an evolved Anthony Joshua. And as I pointed out many times before, the old Anthony Joshua was the Anthony Joshua that got himself stopped against Andy Ruiz and beaten up against Andy Ruiz. So when everyone was calling to see the old Anthony Joshua back, I don't want the old Anthony Joshua back. The old Anthony Joshua is the one that threw caution to the wind against Andy Ruiz and got himself pinged around the ring and beaten up and essentially stopped in brutal fashion. So I never wanted that, and I don't believe that's what you got. Now we have an evolved Anthony Joshua, an Anthony Joshua that is calculated, an Anthony Joshua that takes a bit of caution, an Anthony Joshua that evaluates on the go in the ring. And now with Ben Davison, he has a coach or a trainer that has now taken the portion of Anthony Joshua, which seemed to be the weak area, was the fact that he was an overthinker. And the overthinking came from doubt. And now that Ben Davison has taken the overthinking out of Anthony Joshua's job, essentially Ben Davison is doing all the thinking for Anthony Joshua, and he will feed the information onto a USB stick, plug the USB stick into Joshua's head. The information will be there, and Joshua will just act on his instruction. He has total faith, total confidence on the instruction that Ben Davison and the Davison team is giving him, which now allows him to go out and box in a more fluid and a more natural way, because he's not having to do the cognitive part, essentially. That's been done for him by Team Davidson. And I think this is why you've seen such fluid and destructive performances from Anthony Joshua since. So when people say this fight is now, it's who gets off first, it's a shootout, it's who lands first, I don't think that is the case. I think you will see a fairly cautious Joshua. And to me, where this fight will be won and lost is this. The more right hands that Daniel Dubois throws, is the more opportunities Anthony Joshua will have to counter that right hand with his own right hand and followed by the left hook. I saw Richie Woodall on BT Sport doing a sort of mock-up with George Groves, and they were sort of saying how each guy would go about it. And Richie Woodall was saying that essentially that Anthony Joshua would either parry the jab or block the jab and catch. And that's not what I really see Anthony Joshua doing. What I see Anthony Joshua doing is he'll either slip to either side, or he'll take the lean back and then come over the top with his own right hand, followed by the left hook. This is where I think the fight will be won for Anthony Joshua. You won't see him parrying, you won't see him blocking or catching. To me, you will see him slipping or dipping back and then coming back, or even underneath with his own right hand and a left hook to follow. That is where I believe this fight will be won and lost. I believe Daniel Dubois' willingness to engage and willingness to go out and fight in the way that he did. And he leaves gaps. He leaves a lot of room behind Sorry, I'm a lefty, so I'm doing these wrong. He leaves a lot of room behind his right hand, and then when he hooks after, there's a lot of room in between. And I'm also not a fan of this out in front defence. You know, for me, Daniel Dubois should be doing a Wall Street. He should be on the phone with both hands, making deals with both hands on the phone. Do you know what I mean? He should be on the phone with both hands. This is where his defence should be, not this out in front defence. And then the other thing that Dubois does, comes too far over his front foot. His hands are out here, and Anthony Joshua throws one of the best uppercuts in the heavyweight division from either hand. And with Daniel Dubois out here, with a defence out in front, leaning over his front foot, and he'll do this when he throws the right hand. He'll throw the right hand. His chin will be right over the front foot. His defensive hand will be here, or here somewhere. It won't be on the phone. And there are gaps galore for Anthony Joshua to exploit. So expect Dubois to come out and attack. Expect Dubois to come out and throw that bomb. But then expect Anthony Joshua, after a while, not straight away, but to time and counter that right hand attack by Daniel Dubois. And he will slip or he will drop back, and then he will. Again, sorry, I'm a lefty, so this is coming from. So he will slip or he will come back, and over will come. For me, it's the left hand. For Joshua, it will be the right hand. We know this, but you know what I'm trying to say. And this will be where the fight is won and lost. For me, Daniel Dubois' eagerness to throw that right hand will give Joshua the opportunities that he needs to be that slick, fast, effective, offensive counter-puncher that he has become. And to me, that is where the fight will be won and lost. Now, there's a caveat, and that caveat will be this, that if Dubois can take those counter punches by Joshua, if he can take Joshua's right hand, left hook counter, and we go into rounds 8, 9, and 10, I do believe Daniel Dubois' stamina is better than Anthony Joshua's. Saying that, Joshua fights now more controlled, so he carries more energy into the latter half of the fight. But if we do get into the latter half of the fight, this is where I then see it being a true 50-50. So that is my prediction. It will be Joshua by stoppage with a counter right hand or a counter right hand left hook combination, and that will see Anthony Joshua as the new IBF heavyweight champion. Let me know what you think. That'll be good to see and read your opinions. But for now, that is it. I will see you all soon, and I will be on G-Man's Live tonight. So if you're about looking and tuning for that, nice one. I'll see you all soon. Peace.